Welcome to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with your host, Austin Davidson and John Keir, talking Steelers all the time. Now, here's Austin and John.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Stronger Than Steel podcast, hosted by myself, John Keir, and my awesome co-host, Austin Davidson.
Heyo.
Season 6, Episode 25. Austin, the Pittsburgh Steelers are now 1-2 after a disappointing defeat at home to the Cincinnati Bengals by a final score of 24-10. And now the Steelers have to pick themselves up and head out to Lambeau Field to take on Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, who are 2-1 after their win over the San Francisco 49ers. And this game was kind of a continuation of the struggles we saw from the Steelers against the Raiders last week, but it was just that, but so much worse. And everything that is bad about this team seemed to be amplified. And in a game where it was really hard to find winners. The Steelers just could not get anything going offensively, and defensively they just gave up big plays at the worst times. And even though that they were realistically still in it for most of the game, it never really felt like that they were in this game once the Bengals went up by 10 points sometime in the second half. Just a lot of bad things to take away from this team. And despite the fact that the team is just 1-2, it really has the feeling of the sky is falling around the team, and in a way that has not really been felt with this team, even in the 2019 season, because Ben was out for most of that year. I can't remember the last time I've seen such a negative aura around this team. But this loss at home, the first double-digit loss to Cincinnati since 1995, yeah, that's going to have people feeling some kind of way. I can't come up with enough words to describe the epic proportions of despair that have come away from this game.
Yeah, it was a tough pill to swallow coming from this game. Just absolutely tough. The Bengals just completely outmatched the Steelers in every single facet, and Tyler Boyd said it best, is that the Steelers just gave up. Towards the end, they had just given up. And I hope that those words stuck with them and pissed them off, because they should be pissed for how they performed.
And like we said, there was a lot wrong with this game, but I mean, how do you want to approach this one? Do you want to kind of start from the top? Because I imagine that there will be bigger discussions about overhead, big picture stuff rather than the actual game itself. So do you kind of want to just get into the game itself and talk about what went wrong?
Yeah, because I feel like it's everything that we discussed last week, just amplified. It was the same thing again. Just, again, worse.
All right, well, with that being the case, and we'll start with the breakdown. Let's kind of start with the defense, because that'll be the more simpler side of it. And it'll be simpler because the defense was only on the field for 42 defensive snaps. If you want to take away kneel downs from Joe Burrow at the end of the first and second halves, there was only 39 real defensive plays registered by the Steelers in this one, and yet the Bengals were able to score 24 offensive points. That's only the third time that's happened since the 1970s, and Joe Burrow had 3 touchdowns to show for it. And on a day where he was very good, the Steelers defense, while you didn't get the feeling that they were awful, they did give up some massive plays at some really inopportune times.
Yeah, they just aren't clutch. It's tough. I mean, they can't make up for the turnovers, and part of me again doesn't blame them, because they're just injured. They don't have they don't have the defense's best player, and I mean, down Alex Highsmith, Tyson Alualu, it's hard.
Stephon Tuitt still.
Yeah, Stephon Tuitt still. You still expect more though, but it is tough. Like, they gave up touchdowns after the turnovers the offense committed, and like, that's on the offense more than anything, because it gives the defense a short field to work with. But you hope that a defense of their caliber can pull through. But again, like, what is a defense of their caliber without T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith? What are they without Tyson Alualu and Stephon Tuitt? Are they still a top-tier defense? I feel like they moved to just average, like, without those players. Like, good to average. I still kind of wish that they could have gotten those back, but I mean, it is what it is. They're still 24 points per game isn't like the worst. Like if you look at like the scoring, right, for the average for the league, 24 points per game would be dead average for what they're giving up. They're not even giving up that many points per game, and there are only 11 teams with better defensive points per game allowed than the Steelers, and 6 of them have the same or less turnovers on offense as the Steelers. So it's just I don't know. I don't know how much blame to put on them. I don't know how much I should expect of them with their injuries. I just wish they were a little bit better, but I don't know if they're average without their best player, how much can I really hurt them? It's not like they're below average.
I disagree with you. I do think that 24 points is below average when you're running 39 defensive plays. That's about half of what you normally run against. They just did not make plays in this one, and I'm not saying that we should have expected 10 points against performance, but they got 0 pressures against Joe Burrow against a bad offensive line that was missing pieces too, and they didn't even get a single quarterback hit. And it starts with the coaching staff, because for the third straight game, the Steelers did not execute many blitzes in this one. They still tried to get pressure with their 4 guys, and they just could not get pressure in this game. I think the overall pressure from Next Gen Stats was 5% of dropbacks, so I think that was, one of Joe Burrow's dropbacks. He had 18 dropbacks, or 19, because he scrambled once or twice in that game. And they got pressure, I think, on one of them. It was one of the earlier downs. They also had Melvin Ingram, their best pass rusher outside of Cam Hayward in this game, dropping into coverage on 5 of his 13 on 5 of a possible 13 plays where he could have been pass rushing. They had him in coverage. They had Devin Bush in coverage on Tyler Boyd, who scored a touchdown. Some of the worst tackling that I've seen recently from this team, and just a situation where they gave up big plays in situations where they had to keep a lid on things. Again, I'm not expecting 10 points, for the whole game, but the Bengals were able to do more than they probably should have. And it starts with the coaching staff for not recognizing that and not trying to compensate enough for it. They had too much faith in the guys on the outside, meaning the linebackers, that they were going to be able to do their job, and they just couldn't. And they relied too much on Cam Hayward to make plays when he was getting double and triple teamed all day. So I think it's a failing from the defensive staff. And outside of that, there's just, it'd be one thing if Jamar Chase mossed James Pierre, but Pierre just got beat plain and simple on that play, and he could not have gotten beaten on that play. But like you said, it's a unit that certainly deserves less blame than the offense, but I hardly find them blameless either.
Yeah. They definitely have their flaws, and even when all the defensive pieces are back, if they'll ever all be back together, because Lord knows TJ Watt will be back this week, and then Joe Hayden will have a groin injury next week, and then you'll miss a cornerback, and then you'll never. It's going to continue. Joe Hayden comes back, now you lost Cameron Hayward. Cameron Hayward comes back, now you lost Alex Highsmith again. I feel like this is just going to be. This is going to be the theme. Like, I want to see the defense play together as much as possible, like what's left of them right now that can be, because obviously you're done with Tyson Alualu basically for the year. It's not guaranteed, as we talked about, but Alualu should be done for the year. But the rest of them, I just want to see them play together and see what they could do together, because I still think they could be a much better defense than what we saw. I think at the very least they could get more interceptions. They could be better in that regard, because so far through 3 games, they're just not been as good at getting the ball and turning it over as we've seen in like the past 2 years, where they were basically leading the league in interceptions both years. I mean, they only have 1 pick and 1 fumble, and the pick in this game was
Fluky.
because it was Devin Bush knocked the ball up, and Terrell Edmonds was able to intercept it. And I mean, then the on top. Yeah, it wasn't bad. And then the offense was able to do nothing with that at midfield. So I mean, they in fact said, "Here, you want to turn over back," and they threw an interception right back to the Bengals. So just tough. I gotta hope for. I 100% expect better from the defense going forward, but I still, with how much the Bengals ran the ball and how effectively they ran it, just tough to beat that. They had to be better in stopping the run, and they just weren't at all.
That was my main concern, was the
Yeah.
outside linebackers kind of closing down, and they got exposed in this one. That was one that I was expecting to happen.
Yeah, that it's tough. It's tough to stop Joe Mixon this year so far, and they were not good enough. And that's with like the linebackers there. Again, no Tyson Alualu down the middle, but you still have Joe Schobert and Devin Bush should be there to clean it up, and Cameron Hayward's still very good. So it was tough to see. I really wanted them to focus on stopping the run.
You also pointed out that Isaiah Buggs played relatively well in this game too, which I agreed with.
Yeah, Isaiah Buggs had really good penetration, I thought. I mean, for a guy that for a team that didn't get any quarterback pressures, I thought he was getting good penetration in the run game. But yeah. Oh, and I knew what I wanted to address. Yeah, there's so many missed tackles in this game. I tweeted it out, but like you look at the picture and it still blows my mind. The picture of Tyler Boyd's touchdown, like right when he's about to get hit by Devin Bush, absolutely does not look like it would have been a touchdown. It is ridiculous that 3 Steelers were there and couldn't get him down. Like especially where he was at. Just absolutely ridiculous. And then secondly, the only quarterback pressure of the day should have been a sack. Like there was like 3 missed tackles on that. The very least we could have left this game with the sack streak still intact. If that play hit home, Melvin Ingram couldn't get him down, and then I think Cameron Hayward missed. I forgot who missed the 3rd tackle. But then Joe Burrow was able to turn a sack and loss of yards into a scramble and gain, and it really sucked.
Yeah, that play was actually one instance where I thought that the Steelers did a good job of trying to generate pressure by throwing both Jameer Jones and Melvin Ingram onto one side, and they actually did get pressure but weren't able to finish it off. My frustration with this defense more so lies in their defense of the deep passing game. So Joe Burrow had 4 incompletions on the day, and 2 of them were 20 yards past the line of scrimmage. So I mean, when he was targeting intermediate or short, he had 1 incompletion on the day. Sorry, when I said incompletions, he had 2 incompletions, or 1 incompletion, 1 interception, and he had 2 incompletions short of 10 yards. So he was almost perfect short of 20 yards. And he was only 1 for 3 past 20 yards, but that 1 was a touchdown. And it was a play that the Steelers should have seen on tape. The Bengals had run that exact play each of the last 2 weeks for touchdowns. So it's one that's on tape, and they should have been able to defend. And the fact that they weren't. And in that situation, too, right after the offense had gotten some points, and it was right before the half, and you were going to have to play defense to start the second half. Giving up that score there was just a backbreaker, and I thought really was the pivotal moment of the game.
Yeah, it was tough to swallow giving up that touchdown, but yeah, it is what it is. We have to keep moving on and hope that the defense gets better, which I think they have a way better chance of getting better than the offense does.
They absolutely do. They're at least getting players back. The offense, you want to circle back there now. That situation seems hopeless. And, do you want to start with the coaching of that?
Yeah, there's not much you could do when literally there's a play that got picked on. It's all 4 Steelers are running curl routes. Like every single one, 10 yards down the field, coming back at the same time. Like there's no different route. And what's specifically annoying about curl routes, you could argue that it was on purpose, but if they were in zone coverage, which they weren't, so at least it didn't look like it, I should say. If they were in zone coverage, curl routes don't work. Like they're straight up, they're a man killer. You use curl routes against man because typically when you're in man, it's harder to recover from that when a wide receiver puts his foot into the ground and comes backwards and starts speeding up forward before you could even realize it. Steelers, first of all, weren't able to get separation off that other than maybe whoever was at the bottom of the screen on that play. But the point of why that's stupid is the Steelers had to be so confident that they were in man coverage because otherwise that play would have been shut down. Like it's not impossible to run a curl route against zone coverage if you fall into the right spot, but it's just typically not going to work as well against man. And like the fact that they didn't have a route just in case, like, oh, what if we get it wrong? What if the Bengals are giving us a look of something different. That's problem one. Problem two is it's just stupid to have every single guy doing the same exact thing. There's like nothing behind. I don't know. It's just really stupid. So that's just, and I'm focusing on one play. This is the entire game. The game plan is awful. The game plan is the same thing we've been seeing. Throw it underneath, take a deep shot down the left or the right, and hope for a penalty. And it doesn't work. It really, really doesn't work. It's a really, really sad offense.
Yeah, and we've kind of been focusing just on the coaching staff here in Matt Canada right now. There's been pre-snap, not motion. There's been pre-snap shifting, and that's basically been the main difference between this offense and last year. The struggles and just the difficulty for this team to move the ball. And I wanted to start by kind of talking about the whole Mike Tomlin quote about running into that Bengals front. Do you recall what that was?
Yeah, it'd be stupid to do that.
Yeah, so Mike Tomlin had talked about, before the game on Sunday, he had an interview with Bob Labriola, I believe, and was talking about running into the Bengals' defensive front. See, the Bengals have this tendency to load up to stop a run when teams bring in heavy personnel. So, 3 tight ends, 13 or 22 personnel. The Bengals like to bring in sometimes 5 defensive linemen to try to slow down an opposing rushing attack when teams load up. So they load up on big men. The Bengals load up on even more. So Mike Tomlin said it would be stupid to run into that. And the Steelers decided to immediately run into that, calling that personnel on the second play of the game. Mind you, on that play, the Steelers ran it for 1 yard, and there was an illegal formation on that play because Eric Ebron went in motion and didn't cover up the tackle. This is the second play of the game, which means that this was scripted. They practiced this, on Saturday. They were preparing to go into the game with this play, and Eric Ebron F's up the play by not motioning to the correct spot, and then it runs for 1 yard. So their second play, they have to start. They have to redo their second play at 2nd and 11 because of that. I mean, if that just doesn't describe the whole situation in a nutshell, then what are you doing? I mean, the Steelers tried to load up on this heavy personnel and had 0 successful runs out of it. And to be clear, of the 14 runs that Najee Harris had, all the running back runs, he had 2 that were successful on the day, and none of them were in that heavy package. And we've been talking about a 50% successful run rate. That's been the talk of the Steelers for a while. I don't know about you, but 2 out of 14 does not sound like 50% to me.
No, I don't think that math works out at all. I don't think it becomes close. It's just tough. 70% of his... I feel like this is my new phrase, just talking about the offense. Just, it's tough. Like, that's literally all I could say because it is tough. Like, Najee Harris has been hit in the backfield on 70% of his runs. 70%. That's a lot. That's most of them. Like, what can you do at that point? He's doing a decent job to get off of that, to make the best of it. And that's worse in the league, by the way. Being hit in the backfield that much is the worst in the league for any offensive backfield. But he's doing the best he can, but it's just not enough. Like, it's almost like you needed a better offensive line to make a running back work, and you didn't need a first-round running back, and instead needed offensive line. But apart from my saltiness about that still, but Najee is doing a good job to the best of his abilities. This was his best game. Again, the run game is just not there. Like, what sucks even more is every time Najee gets a good run, other than the 20-yard run he got that counted, which accounted for half his yards, the 13 other carries went for 20 yards, every good run gets taken away. The reason it's a good run is usually because an offensive lineman is holding, and that's what we saw. Najee Harris, I think, had 2 11-yard runs in this game. Both got taken away due to some penalty. One was a holding for sure. The other one I can't remember. It might have been a false start. But regardless, the point is Harris is trying his best, but this offensive line is just not good enough. It is not good enough at all. I do appreciate the offense's recognizing like, hey, if we're gonna throw short, we should throw to Najee. I thought that worked. I thought they did fine there, and them using him was good to see. But making him the entire offense was also not what I meant. Like he
too far the other way.
Yeah, too far, too much. They took it too serious. 19 targets, leading the team in targets, leading the team in receptions, leading the team in receiving yards, and therefore scrimmage yards as well. Just not what I meant. there needs to be a little bit better balance there, and your whole offense can't be throwing to Najee underneath like that. Just need to be better for him. It's just again. I thought Najee did fine this game. I thought he did his best. He might have been the only good offensive player out there, and he still had his problems. He finished with 3 drops on the day, and it's like some of them were pretty egregious drops, getting scared of getting hit out in the flats. But how much can I blame him? He got targeted 19 times. He had to catch 14 balls. The fact he caught 14 and dropped 3, how much can I yell at him when he was the entire offense?
Yeah, I mean, he was the offense, and there were a handful of design plays for him on Sunday, which was pretty good to see, but most of them it felt like were checkdowns. And let's be clear, Austin, a checkdown is not always the wrong thing to do. Sometimes checking it down is the right thing to do. The problem is it happens so much, of his 14 receptions, how many do you think were probably the right check down? 4, maybe 5? Like how many of them were the wrong thing? And I mean, we can focus on that fourth down play near the end zone, which was apparently designed, as Mike Tomlin and Ben said, which was designed after a timeout to swing it to Najee with blockers in front. The problem is nobody blocked, which means what the hell happened? Yeah.
I mean, who knows? I don't know what the idea is. Why? I don't know if the whole offense was confused or if they're covering. I literally no idea. It's because we're getting two conflicting answers. The wide receivers didn't block, not a single one. So are all the wide receivers not on the same page, or is this covering up for Ben? Just like I don't understand. Like, can you just I wanted to know in the answer who did what wrong. It was a design play, but I don't know. Like, I really don't know. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me that every single wide receiver didn't know that they were supposed to do that. It's like a conspiracy theory to me. Like, that, yeah, they said it was designed that way, but I don't know. It really does feel like it's just a cover for Ben doing that. The wide receivers have not proven to be smart, but exactly, but I don't like if Deontay Johnson was on the field as one of them, I think I would have believed it. That's the part of it though. Like, it's not Deontay Johnson wasn't one of the wide receivers out there. It's tough.
I kind of believe it because I heard Tomlin's answer to it, and if you see on the play, you hear the quote unquote picket fence. There were 5 Bengals defenders standing at the goal line, so I kind of understand what he's saying, but at the same time, his response, we had emptied all of our bullets or whatever he said. What kind of answer is that? I mean, what kind of answer is that? Do something different than that. Throw a jump ball to Claypool and then hope that someone's there to catch the ricochet when he drops it.
Literally. Literally. Anything is better. Like, there should have never been a play where it didn't go to the end zone for that. Like, it's basically your last chance. Everyone should have been in the end zone. Other than maybe you have Najee go to the middle, the deep middle, like 10 yards down, and have him sit there on a curl, on an angle curl. I don't know what those are actually called, but
I think it actually is just are you talking like a
you run
stop?
like yeah, kind of. You run on an angle towards the field goal post, and then you just curl back and you stop there.
See, I know, I forget what that's called. I know that if you just keep going, that's actually just called an angle, but I guess that's why you called it an angle curl.
Yeah, it's like because it's like a combination of the two. So I hope that picture is clear enough for what I'm asking for. But everyone should have been in the end zone, and it should have been a throw to the end zone, not a throw to the side of the field. I'm at a point where it's like I don't care if it's interception anymore. Like if I want to see them target the middle of the field, like give it a chance. Like I'd rather see an interception to the middle of the field than an incompletion on the right side. If I'm being real, for another week, if I have to see it, then I could say at least okay, all right. So this isn't gonna work. They are really not targeting the middle of the field because they just simply can't. They are rolling over and saying we can't do it before they even try. They are literally not even giving it a chance to fail.
Which means Tomlin was literally lying to us when he told us that they had emptied all their bullets. Like, bullshit you have. You haven't you haven't thrown towards the middle of the field since the wild card game.
Literally. I don't think it's they got to just give it a chance. And even like one interception is not going to scare me away from trying it again. I go back to what this team lives on. What Mike Tomlin loves saying and just pisses me off to no end is we don't live in our fears. And every time I get to a situation like this, there's always a situation where, oh, you absolutely live in your fears, Mike Tomlin. I don't know if I know a head coach that lives more in their fears. It is one of the most false statements the Steelers say, and it just makes me extra mad now because it's like, oh yeah, we don't do that, but yeah, you absolutely do. You're afraid of everything. You are like a little puppy dog afraid to just go outside. I don't. Oh, it gets so much more frustrating when they continue to use that phrase. I want them to stop using the phrase or start acting like it.
Do you understand why even though I'm not a fire the coach guy, why I said I might have let him go after last year?
Yeah. I totally understand.
Because this isn't what it used to be like. It did not used to be like this, but it's clear that Mike Tomlin doesn't have faith in the offense anymore, which is fine. Why would you? But don't lie to us about it, and don't lie to your team about it. I just feel like there's a lot of value in your actions speaking louder than your words. And when you repeatedly don't do that, I think that there's been a lot of talk. Let me back up. I think there's been a lot of talk over the years about losing the locker room, and I think that that's generally a bunch of nonsense. But when I've worked with former coaches of high school, and I know that that's nowhere near close, but the principle is the same. If you're trying to be a leader and you do something different than what you're saying, it's harder to lead. At what point do the players maybe not believe you? And maybe that's not an issue for Tomlin because he's built up all this rep over the course of, 17 years. But at the same time, how much good is it to do it like this?
I don't know. I think there should definitely be some accountability dished out. Like, you have to just go out there and say the team has to be better as a whole, and especially the offense. Like, it's just how it is. Like, it really, really is. Because the team can improve everywhere. But, like...
And he you know what? He does say that, though. He says the same thing, but a lot of times they just end up bashing their head against the wall. What is with this disconnect between him and Matt Canada where he's saying, yeah, it'd be dumb for our offense to run right into their heavy package. And then they immediately do that. Like, what, was he not watching the offense in practice this week? What was he doing?
I have no idea. It's just maybe Canada was maybe forced into this position when he probably shouldn't have. Maybe that's where we're at. Maybe the Steelers don't feel comfortable hiring outside of their own place, and it's like
which is a mistake. It's wrong.
It's an echo chamber. Yeah, it's an echo chamber. So if you came up with Randy Fichtner, even if it was only for a year, because you're only with the Steelers for a year, you're probably going to run a lot of the same things because it's easy. Maybe you need someone from outside to make it not an echo chamber, bring in some new ideas, and be like, hey, like, this is what my old team did. And yes, Canada was with college teams prior to being the quarterback coach, and it's a little bit different. And yeah, we're seeing
doesn't look different.
It doesn't look different. It's just it's fancy Randy Fichtner offense. You get to see a little bit of fancy movement before you run some short routes. But they probably really should have went outside of the team and got an offensive coordinator from somewhere that has some separate ideas. I don't know where you would have went.
Or a different offensive line coach, by the way. No, and no offense to Adrian Klum. I'm sorry. Like I'm not trying to take shots at the guy, but did a team full of young offensive linemen really need a guy that's never been a full-time offensive line coach in the NFL for the first time?
Absolutely not. Nope. Mm-hmm. They did that last year too with Surratt. But other than that, I really miss Mike Munchak. I saw a tweet saying like, "Oh yeah, the team with Mike Munchak wasn't even that good," and I'm like, I really don't get you people. Like, they were like, well, the Steelers were only with Mike Munchak were like 14th, 15th, 14th, and like 20th in rushing, and I'm like, do you not remember how Le'Veon Bell rushed? Like, Le'Veon Bell as a pure runner wasn't that great. It was that he was a decent runner and what he contributed in the pass game, and the Steelers' run game was never featured anyway. And for us to be ranked mid-pack was a solid thing. And you know where we ranked top-notch? Pass blocking. It didn't even matter. So, like, I saw that tweet and it pissed me off. I was like, I miss Mike Munchak more than anyone. I don't think there was anything the Steelers could have done. I'm sure if they offered him a really fat contract, maybe it would have changed his mind. But, like, I'm sure they already did. I'm sure they tried. But he really wanted to go to Denver, but I miss him. If he ever decides that if his family moves away from Denver, I would take him back in a heartbeat.
We'll finance their house.
I will let him stay in my house in New York if he would like, and he could travel to Pittsburgh. Kind of far drive, but literally, Lord, I think everything went wrong when Mike Munchak left, because that's when the line it stopped being good and it stopped developing. Like, I felt like they weren't showing anything. I miss Mike Munchak is the point of this tirade.
Now the offensive line that they kind of turned over a lot of things, and the whole I'm not ready to get into the whole management aspect of it yet. Let's wait on that, okay? Because we can talk about management. As far as the coaching goes, we talked about why it's been a mistake for them to stay the course too much. And, doing the things that they've done traditionally have helped them be the most successful team in the NFL since the merger in 1970. There's a lot of good things that they've done. But at the same time, you do have to at least evaluate and change some things. People, organizations, businesses that do not change die. That's just a fact. And that doesn't mean you have to change everything, but you have to at least consider it. So, I mean,
I guess a Netflix situation here.
You're becoming Blockbuster, not Netflix, All right, well, yeah. I guess since we've started down it, I guess we can continue down the organizational path. As far as the blame goes, if you want to throw blame, it's 3 weeks into a season. There's 14 games left of the regular season. A lot can change. But what was the mission for Art Rooney in the front office, Kevin Colbert, Mike Tomlin? What was the idea with this team? Was it to make one last go of it, like we were told? Was it to rebuild on the fly and kind of use this year as a bridge year, kind of doing it in a sneaky way, rebuild this year, but tell people you're going for it? So that way when you were disappointed, you could say, oh, we still brought Ben back. We were going for it. Or was it to just know that you were going to be bad and let Ben be the sacrificial lamb? What was it? We were told one thing. It could have been two other things. Did this team really expect to compete? Because with all three cases, we can kind of nitpick and pick apart all of them. So, I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about any one of those kind of thought processes at once, but there's errors all over the place with any of them.
Yeah, there are errors. The Steelers kind of didn't commit to anything. They're all in the middle. They said
half measures.
Yeah, they took a bunch of half measures and it took them right to the middle. And something I just want to say in the middle for people that are in the Fire Tomlin crowd, this is your best shot. This is your best year at probably seeing that, at least so far. Again, a lot can change. I pointed out a few times, but last year the Steelers' run game up until this point, fire. It was doing great. It was amazing. It was one of the best in the league. The only team with a 100-yard rusher through week 3 on every single game. It was doing great. So anything could change, as we saw. But the reason I bring this up is because the one thing that Art Rooney focused on and said he was pissed off that the run game was the worst in the league, and he absolutely wanted to see that fixed. So if you're in the Fire Mike Tomlin crowd, this is probably your best chance for it, because so far nothing has changed. They didn't fix the most important thing that Art Rooney focused on. And excuse me, sorry, ow, too excited about talking about this stuff, but all I was trying to say is that this is your best chance, because when you're not improving exactly where the ownership wanted you to, it's a bad look. It's a bad look for everyone involved here. But yeah, they didn't do enough. They had a lot of oversight. I think the scout team, I really, really put a lot of blame on the scout team for saying that Kendrick Green could be a starter immediately. I don't know who said that. I don't know if it was Clem. I don't know if and he said, yeah, this guy's an immediate starter. I don't know if there was a guy in the scout team that hammered home that Kendrick Green is going to be a first-year starter at center. I don't know who did that, but that was a very big mistake.
Don't discount Tomlin or Colbert either. They have huge influence in that, obviously.
That too, if one of them did it. So whoever just decided that should be your starting center, that's a mistake. No offense to Green, I stand by. If he develops, he could be great in the future. He needed time to develop, though. He never should have been a first-year starter. And for a team that said, hey, we want to compete this year, that is not your guy. That is not the guy that you compete with this year. You get a Creed Humphrey or Landon Dickerson to compete this year. You get a true center earlier than you got one. And these are just some of the management decisions. There's tons of management decisions. Paying Derek Watt. I won't go on that further because I literally talked about that last week. Stupid. Absolutely dumb. Not paying a guard after David DeCastro left.
Matt Filer.
Yeah, and Matt Filer, who, as what's it called? Matt Filer with the Chargers right now is the highest graded guard in football. So he is doing fantastic with his new team, and good for him. I respect that. I thought he was a good player with us.
And not to mention picking up Trey Turner. So like the two of them swapping teams and just how different they look, it just makes the Steelers look that much worse.
100%. Picking up Trey Turner. The money spent on Trey Turner and Derek Watt could have easily been thrown at Joe Thuney with voidable years. The Steelers already showed they love voidable years. There's a lot of money in next year still. Assumingly, the Steelers are not going to get a free agent quarterback next year. At least I think. I hope. I don't know if I hope not. I'm not sure. It's going to depend. I'm going to say I hope not right now, but things can change quickly. Regardless, they're going to have $44 million in open cap space next year. They could have easily thrown voidable years on a Joe Thuney contract to get an actual quality guard. He's now in Kansas City with Creed Humphrey doing really well together. Who would have thought on one of the NFL's most powerful offenses? There's just a lot they could do. They made a lot of mistakes.
What do you think about them letting Mike Hilton and Steven Nelson leave?
Oh, awful decisions also there. Yeah. Ignoring the cornerback position. It's tough. I think the cornerbacks, I don't give them too much cap for them because I think the cornerbacks overall have been actually solid. But again, we are like in 2 weeks, James Pierre could tear his ACL, knock on wood, and we're done. It's over. You got Akilla Witherspoon and Justin Lane coming in. That's really great. That is not what you want to see. When you could have had Steven Nelson or Mike Hilton, and again at this point with how Trey Turner is playing, I know he graded as PFF's best guard, the best offensive player in this past game, but like that doesn't mean much to me. It still wasn't a very good grade, to be fair, either. It was low 70s, which is, I think, average, you said. But
average at best, yeah.
Yeah. So, but regardless, so that's a mistake. And I had one more thing that I really wanted to. That was a managerial mistake. There was one more thing that I had in my head before I got to that.
Well, what about the whole slot cornerback thing? Because that was botched from the start because they didn't know who their slot cornerback was going to be. Now Trey Norwood, I think, has been good for a 7th-round rookie, but they've been utilizing him, I think, too much, and that's just, I mean, I think the big one is the offensive line. Number one is the offensive line. Assuming that this group would be good enough. And again, I wanted to explore it from the standpoint of they think they're competing this year. They think they're going for it this year. Assuming that is the case, like you talked about with the Kendrick Green thing and the whole Trey Turner thing, which was a bit more of a surprise to them. But going out and the hubris of this organization, if that is really what they thought going into the year with this offensive line, which we said was going to be at best a massive question mark, is just I called it a dereliction of duty by Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin to think that this was okay to put this offensive line that's unproven and full of question marks in front of a 39-year-old quarterback that has had injury issues throughout his career, can't elude the pass rush at this age anymore, and is having struggles with limitations at this point, not targeting the middle of the field. All of that, and just assuming that it's going to go well, is insane. It'd be one thing if you had a quarterback like Ben in his prime to assume that he could lift it like he did in 2008 when the Steelers won the Super Bowl with probably the worst line in the NFL. But to think that he could do that again at age 39 is just insanity. And then there's also bringing Ben back, which we haven't even talked about. And let me be clear, Austin, I don't blame a player for wanting to come back because that's their livelihood. For Ben, that's what he's done for 17 years in the NFL. I don't have an issue with that, especially when he also had a contract still. He took his pay cut, whatever, he's back, that's fine. There aren't a lot of rosy endings to NFL careers. You don't get to have the Jerome Bettis, Peyton Manning walk off the field as a champion every time. It doesn't happen often. A lot more you see what happens to Eli Manning, where they get benched and then it's over. And look, they've seen him a lot more than we have, obviously. They've seen him in practice. If they had an inkling that he was going to play this bad, why would they have put this offensive line together? I think that bringing him back would only have been okay if they looked at that line, upgraded it successfully, and thought, okay, this is going to be fine. What about the quote-unquote changes to the offense and the horrible offensive line and the way he's played? How could they not have seen this coming? I can't believe it. Go ahead.
I have no idea. And you reminded me of what I was, because you literally pointed out the unproven line, the Zach Banner contract. Zach Banner could be good. We don't know, but
we like him.
We like him, but betting on a guy that's coming off an ACL tear and throwing at him $4.5 million is a lot. And now we're at week 3. He's eligible to come off IR, but by the sound of it, I had very choice words for John saying, I know what's going to happen. Like, I think I said it Sunday. I think after the game, I was like, it's going to be the icing on the cake. I said it a different way. When the Steelers tell us that none of the guys on IR are going to come off IR for week 4, and the way Mike Tomlin put it, I was joking. I thought, okay, we're going to get one of those guys back at the least. It sounds like not a single one of those guys on IR is going to be available for week 4 against the Packers. Tough. And so now we're at week 4 without Zach Banner, who the Steelers bet on. They bet $4.5 million on him. Again, $4.5 million that could have went to just Joe Thuney or someone that would be playing right now. It's just tough. They made a lot of bets that might not pay off. I mean, if Zach Banner's really good, great. They did do a good job, but right now it just doesn't look good when he's not playing. The injuries lasted longer than expected by a decent amount. I mean, he got injured week 1 last year, and I mean, we're now at week 4 and he's not going to be ready.
He's played 12 snaps. 12 snaps in the preseason, that's it.
Yep, and that that's earned him $4.5 million. It's just not.
And you're just talking about Banner. You're not even talking about... And the Trey Turner thing, I am less upset about just from the standpoint of they thought they were going to have David DeCastro. Okay. But you already touched on the Kendrick Green thing about how, you know what, I gave you credit earlier for what I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head with the valuation so far about how he could be good, but like you said, this is not the long-term play. He is hurting this team with his poor play right now. And I'm all for growing pains. But again, if the idea is to try to win now, having him out there is a mistake. Having him out there now is about development for the future. So if you continue to play him with how bad he's been, you're telling me it's not about now.
Yeah. Truly, as a player, I hope not. But, like, I don't want to kill his confidence, but I hope he's... I don't want to say hope. That's such a bad way of putting it. I want him to be injured enough this week where he's okay, but the Steelers should go to him and say, hey, you need a week to rest, get healthy, and it's a front to let J.C. Hassenauer play just to see what it would be like. Because we're running out of... We talked about last week what the offense could do, and the offense, to their credit, basically tried everything. Other than, like, the screens and stuff. They had wide receiver screens, not really a running back screen. But Najee Harris was thrown to so much, it's basically like there's a running back screen. But regardless, the last two things you could try is putting J.C. Hassenauer in at center, see if that improves. Because Kendrick Green sucked. Before he got hurt, he was really, really bad. And then Kevin Rader. Kevin Rader's like the last thing, and he's a good run blocker. He's on the practice squad. Last two things you could try. According to PFF, which, again, I already talked about how they graded Trey Turner at the top, so just take it with a grain of salt. J.C. Hassenauer played nine snaps when he got to play. He graded out as the 5th best offensive player. So only 9 snaps, but he was better than Kendrick Green in the little we got to see from him. I truly think for this year, if you're still not trying to pack it up, if you're still trying to say this team can compete, we're not panicking yet, I think Hassenauer might be the move for, at least for now. I want to see it. So when I say that I hope Kendrick Green's hurt, I really don't hope he's hurt. Like, I don't want that. But I also don't want to kill his confidence either and say, hey, you're getting benched, like, already, because you're that bad.
Also, you don't want the quarterback and running back and everyone else get killed.
Yeah, exactly. It's a tough situation to be in. I do truly think that Hassenauer is the better move. I said that from the moment Green was drafted. I was like, I was literally so confused. I don't know if I told this story on the podcast or I just I messaged you about it, but I remember when Green was drafted, I'm like, oh my God, they're going with J.C. Hassenauer at center. Like, they just drafted a guard before a center. And, like, it took, like, 10 minutes of realization to be like, no. Like, they took Green to be a center. From those that don't remember or that didn't listen to the episode, when we looked at interior offensive linemen, I looked at Green as a guard with center versatility. But I thought he was a guard first. He was way too undersized to be a center. And bull rushes killed him at the college level, and expectedly at the NFL level, bull rushes kill him. Yeah, so I just, my immediate gut reaction was that J.C. Hassenauer was going to be the center, because I just didn't believe that Green was going to be evaluated as a center coming out of college, but here we are. And all this is, again, to the point out that I just think for now that Hassenauer will be better. We'll have to see. I mean, if he gets to play this week, if he gets to start, which it doesn't sound like it sounds like Green is okay, at the very least should practice by the end of the week. We might never see that, but I would like to see what Hassenauer can do over Green. I want to see if it's a noticeable improvement, if there's no noticeable improvement from the middle. That's what all I'm saying.
And then, another guy that just hasn't taken a step is Kevin Dotson. But I wanted to kind of circle back to the whole organizational look at the whole, are they competing this year? And the pitfalls of them making the mistake of bringing Ben back at this point. Look, Ben Roethlisberger's 39 years old. He has his flaws. He's not mobile. There are things he can do better. He can do a much better job of taking care of the football. There is a path, if you will. There's a path for this team to succeed and for him to succeed. And I'm assuming you'll agree with me. It's the whole 2015 Peyton Manning route. And yeah, Ben's not as cerebral as him, but I do think that Ben has more physical ability left, because he wouldn't drop the ball in the bucket of Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool 40 yards down the field the way he did last week against the Raiders if he didn't have anything left. The problem is that his big plays have been so inconsistent, and he doesn't push it down the field successfully as much as he probably should. And then again, he's also 39 years old. How much should you really expect for him? Should you really expect a quarterback of that age to carry a team? Because I can't think of any quarterback in NFL history that's ever elevated a team like that. And you might say Tom Brady. I might dispute that a little bit, just because I think that's one of the most talented teams around him. But at the same point, if you want to say he is, that's an exception, not the rule. So, I mean, asking him to throw it this much is a mistake anyways. And then expecting him to be a difference maker is another massive mistake too. And there are things he can do better, but there is a path for him at least. The problem is this team just isn't anywhere close to that 2015 Broncos team, at least not offensively.
No, not the talent they had.
And that wasn't even a good offense either. It was a solid offense.
Yeah, it was good enough for a really good defense. But yeah, the option is definitely there, because Ben has the power in his arm, as you point out. He can still chuck it down the field. Peyton Manning had a noodle arm at that point. He was restricted. He completely had no choice, because he just couldn't sling the ball like he used to. Ben does not have a noodle arm. He is just making poor decisions and inaccurate throws. So he still has the tools to put it farther down the field. They're just choosing not to. It's a difference of force and choice. So the Steelers definitely have a path if he improves, because he could be better than Peyton Manning in his final year. He could be better than that. It's not saying much. It sounds really weird to say, oh yeah, Ben could be better than Peyton Manning in any regard, but because Peyton Manning's really good.
It's all about adjusted expectations for quarterbacks that are 39, 40 years old. Because again, can you name me any quarterbacks that age or older that have carried a team? And you maybe Brady, but that's it. You can't tell me any others.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely not.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say not a single one.
And the point we're just trying to make is it was an organizational failure if they went in here thinking that he could, or hoping that he would, just kind of whimsically thinking, because realistically the decline has been on since the 2018 season, the second half of the 2018 season, and then there's the injury. And that's not to say he hasn't played well in stretches, like the 11-0 start. I thought he was pretty good, but there are limitations to his game, and I don't know how much of a factor you think the pec injury is playing into his inaccuracy. I'm sure it's contributing, but he's had trouble with misfiring on throws throughout his career. I just think that he could clean it up at the same time too, and the turnovers he can definitely clean up.
Especially the one turnover he got in this game where he threw it right at a Bengal.
That might have been his worst interception ever, really.
Yeah.
It was so sad.
It was. I mean, I can't think of worse. Even the 5 interceptions he had up against the Jaguars that one year, none of them were extremely terrible. They were all terrible. When you throw 5 picks, they're all bad. But
optically, this one was the worst.
It's just but that's throwing it up. That's at this point. If you're throwing it up in the middle of the field and getting intercepted, fine. That's something different, and that's kind of what we saw in that Jaguars game. This was, I'm rolling out to the right when I have someone open to my right in the flat, not in the flat. Just a few yards down the field towards that area where I've been throwing short all game. This time I'm going to target the middle of the field on the run, short middle field, and throw it right into the hands of a waiting Bengal when even if that guy wasn't there, there was two other guys right on top of who he was throwing to. It was just a very, 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 very poor choice. And we are not exaggerating when it could be the worst interception he's had in his career. It was just that bad. It was so bad. He threw it to Logan Wilson. Good for Logan Wilson.
And then to top it off, he whiffs on the tackle too, which you saw it hurt him to do that too, and you just like, damn, like that. It sucks enough to watch the franchise quarterback of this team for most of the past 2 decades with all the success he's had fail like that. And then on top of it, like adding injury to insult, like just see how much it hurts. It really makes you sad.
Yeah, it is really sad. It's really sad to watch. It's just really, really, it's like, it's kind of pathetic. And it's like, but it's sadly pathetic. Like, you don't want to see it. It's like, I don't know. It's like an old man struggling to walk. Like, you feel bad.
Well, and on top of that, it's like, that's where it comes back to the organization, and it's like, you had the power. And when I mentioned, like, if the organization wanted to kind of do a sneaky rebuild where like they're doing a bridge year this year, but they're like, hey, we're bringing Ben back, we're going for it. You're trying to pull the wool over the fans' eyes and try to make us think we're stupid and throw him out here, and he's the sacrificial lamb. And if that's the case, which I don't think it is, but if that is, then shame on Mr. Rooney and the Steelers for doing that to Ben Roethlisberger like that. A player's going to want to play. That's fine. I don't take issue with that. But to use him as a sacrificial lamb like that and to get him killed like that, if that is true, which again, I'm not saying it is, there's nothing really substantiating it, but you can at least make the argument that that was the case. If that is what happened, then shame on them for doing that.
Yeah, that would just be messed up. That would suck. But yeah, I don't know if they were expecting Ben to just take the full pay cut that he could possibly take this year for cap space. I wonder if they went into that conversation like expecting him to say no, and then just expecting to move on, and then
be like, that's it.
Because that's the thing. Like, literally, if they were expecting, like, well, we're going to ask him, and he's going to say no, and then we'll cut him, because then we'll get that money anyway. Because once he takes that pay cut that lowers his cap hit to as low as it can go, there is no point in cutting him. It takes away the point in getting rid of him, because he's already at the lowest cap hit he can be for the year, regardless of if you cut him or not. So I don't know. That's something I really wonder. I wonder if they went into that conversation like, there's no way he's going to take a $19 million pay cut.
That would be so... I'm sorry, but if they went into that conversation trying to walk on eggshells like that, that's such a chicken shit move if that's actually what they wanted to do. I mean, just...
It would be. Yeah.
I know. I don't know if that's how they are operating. I mean, we don't know what happens behind closed doors.
Oh, no. It's just a theory.
But yeah, but... Again, it's like you could, with the way things have gone, you can almost picture it being a possibility. And we don't like giving credence to stuff like that, but we're speculating because it looks that bad. So, like, if that is the way it was handled, I mean, the guy was has been a Hall of Fame quarterback that's helped you win 2 championships. That, give him the dignity of just telling him it's over. Don't let him go through this for nothing if it's just going to be a bridge year anyways. Let poor Mason Rudolph be the sacrificial lamb that he's apparently always been. But, I just, again, I don't think that's how they've operated. I don't think that is what happened, but I could understand why someone might think that that's what's happening, and it's just ridiculous. Again, there's either a horrible way that they've gone about the business of handling the player in the situation, or they were just completely arrogant and stupid and were unable to see what this team actually was going to be. It's either or. That's the thing. There was some massive error here no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what way you cut it, there's something that we don't know because we weren't behind the closed doors, but there was something the Steelers did a lot wrong management-wise going into this year. We don't know what, because we don't know what their true goal was. Whether they were saying they were going to compete and lying or
either
not.
To themselves or us.
Yeah, just a bunch of bad. A bunch of bad.
Mm-hmm. And there was a paragraph I forget from who, someone I think from the Post-Gazette wrote on Sunday after the game. I think he summed it up perfectly in one paragraph. Austin. He said something like the offensive coordinator either cannot or will not do enough to adjust this offense. The quarterback is limited and is injured and can't make the plays he used to. The offensive line can't protect him long enough to potentially try these plays. They can't open up holes for the running back. And anytime that there's a pass that's on the mark, it gets dropped. And that's really is how it feels. I mean, everything that could go wrong, it really is Murphy's Law with this offense right now.
Yeah, everything that could go wrong will go wrong. It's classic. I was trying to see if I could find that quote while you were talking, but I could not. But
it's somewhere in our chat, I know that.
That's what I was saying. I was just trying to scroll up. But
it's insane. And, there were plays where Ben held onto the ball too long and got sacked. He got sacked 4 times. Did you know that he still had the fastest snap-to-release time in the league this week? Despite those, there were 2 sacks where he had the ball for what felt like 5 seconds.
Yeah, that is crazy that he still held it, because I felt like he did hold the ball a lot on those plays. Because even that's part of the problem here too. Is on the few plays, the couple plays that he does get time,
no one's open.
No one's open, and he's doing nothing with it. And I found the exact quote, but I don't know where it's from. It's just blurbed out. But if you want to know the exact quote, the play calling hasn't changed. So was Randy Fichtner's offense really Matt Canada's, or is Canada running Fichtner's? The offensive line is green and lacks cohesiveness. The quarterback is very inaccurate and doesn't complete balls over 10 yards past the line of scrimmage nearly enough. The wide receivers can't separate from coverage. Catchable balls aren't caught. The tight ends are barely used. A bevy of shoot-yourself-in-the-foot offensive penalties. Those are the cause and the effect is... I'm sorry. Those are the causes, and the effect is the offense is monumentally horrible, and there doesn't seem to be a fix in sight.
That's one other thing to add, is that every single starting offensive lineman had a penalty in this game.
Yep, classic.
And then Chase Claypool had 2 offensive pass interference penalties, too, and drops. And Eric Ebron exists. I jokingly said it last week, but I legitimately am wondering if they should cut him at this point, because he adds literally nothing to this team.
Yeah, at the moment it's just not very good. It's not good at all. He had 2 drops or 3? I know.
Well, it depends what you want to call that breakup in the end zone. I think
that was a drop.
Generally, I think that could be called not a drop, because didn't it hit Jesse Bates's hands or something like that at some point?
No, it hit Ebron's perfectly
it did.
above him.
Well, even if it did, I'm at the point now where he's paid to make those plays. It's time to make them.
Yeah, that's another.
He's up to 7 targets this year with 1 catch. I mean, he's 2 targets away from Johnny Holton level, and his targets are much closer to the line of scrimmage.
Yeah. Shit, maybe we should trade him for Marlon Mack. If we're throwing only 2 yards down the field, might as well grab another running back.
I don't know. I mean, he can't run block, and he's not catching the ball. What does he bring to the team? At least Kevin Rader can block a little bit. I'd rather have him than Eric Ebron at this point. And I felt good for a moment when they were having all those injuries. And by the way, Cody White, I thought, did a good job in this game, caught both of his targets. But when I was like, okay, they have all these receiver injuries, but at least Eric Ebron can kind of be a receiver, and then he dropped the ball. And you knew it was a bad day when Pat Freiermuth dropped the pass for the first time since he got to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, not a good day for anyone.
First red zone drop in his career, even dating back to college. Didn't have one in college either.
Yeah, that's wild.
And then Juju left with an injury. That Ray play, do you call that a drop? Because I don't know that I do.
I do not.
If he's a foot taller, I do, but he's not.
Yeah, honestly, if it was just thrown to where McLeod was running, I'd call it a drop. It was thrown a little bit behind, or it was thrown where he was at, and not where he was running to, so it's hard to stop and jump while you're mid-stride running like a not a mesh route. It was an in route, I think. I think it was a little deeper than a mesh. So it's like, so it was thrown a foot above his head and just not in the right spot. So that to me was not a drop, or because it's hard for him to go up and get that. And he's not even that good to begin with. Like, I don't expect, right? If that was realistically put only a half foot above his head, I wouldn't expect him to come up with it.
And like that quote said, there's not a lot of hope in sight right now. This team, offensively, to succeed, needs to have a running game, and they need Ben to only throw the ball maybe 30 times a game, because he's not, you can't risk him getting hit, and he doesn't succeed down the field enough the way things currently stand. He might, if he has less opportunities and he has more open throws because there's play action and whatnot, but there's just nothing going right now. There's not a single thing besides Najee Harris himself that this offense can hang its hat on. From the coaching all the way down, it's all bad, and it's all horribly bad. And I will say, Austin, for every bad thing we've talked about with this offense, all 3 weeks they've had one touchdown drive where they've dinked and dunked their way down the field. And they had the ultimate one, this 15-play, 86-yard drive where I don't think they had a gain longer than 8 yards. They had one 12-yard gain on the drive. Oh, no, they did have an 18-yarder. But the point is that they do have one offensive drive a game that results in a touchdown almost exclusively from dinking and dunking. The bad thing about it is it's their only touchdown drive every game. Yeah,
it's tough. Another part of it is that they don't look like they kick into gear until the beginning of the second half. And in this game,
yes, that's bad too.
They looked like they actually had life for a second and just never got it back. And then by the end of the game, they looked dead. And Tyler Boyd literally said, like, yeah, they look dead. I played the Steelers, 6 times? I think he's played 6 times, maybe 8. And he's like, I've never seen them roll over like that. It's just awful. Awful game. Awful game against the Bengals.
I really think that the tide changed after the Steelers scored that touchdown, and then they gave up a 3-play, 75-yard touchdown drive to Cincinnati. That's really where I thought the game was lost, because you didn't feel like the offense was going to be able to do enough, and obviously they were not able to overcome that. Yeah, and Chris Boswell missed his first field goal against the Bengals in his career. So that just told you a lot of what that day was all about. Ben had, outside of the explosive run by Najee, Ben had the best run of the day, where he lumbered for 5 on a 3rd down.
Classic. Incredible.
And for as bad as Ben has looked and as much as he's struggled, I still think the offensive line is just horrible. Especially when it comes to run blocking. We were saying we expected a drop-off in pass protection, which we thought was going to be questionable for this team to move forward with anyways, because they needed to protect the 39-year-old immobile quarterback. But we expected they'd be better as run blockers, and somehow Villanueva, Alejandro Villanueva, Matt Filer, Marquise Pouncey, David DeCastro, and Chukwuma Okorafor last year were far better run blockers than this year. And to be fair, Okorafor is the same run blocker he's always been, but they just replaced all those guys who aren't good run blockers these days and replaced them with garbage.
Yeah. I wonder how DeCastro's ankle is feeling. I wonder if he's doing better. Probably not, because he's not with the team. But
not enough to come back. Not enough to be like, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to inject myself into this offense.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to come here. I'd go somewhere that's like 1 guard away from winning. I
wonder
don't know if
how
there's a team like that.
When you said that, I also wonder how him and Pouncey feel watching Ben get crushed.
Yeah, it's tough. I wish at this point, if Pouncey didn't lose 100 pounds, I'd see about bringing him back.
It really is a shame. Well, I hate to say this, but you almost wish Ben did walk away. There is a long season to go. Who knows? Maybe things can change. But outside of that, you do really wish that Pouncey didn't walk away. Just because, he was not nearly the same player he was at the end that he was for most of his career. But wouldn't he have been the perfect guy for Kendrick Green to sit behind for a year before then getting
100%.
out? Like, would that not have been the best situation? But it didn't happen.
Yeah, Pouncey was known for his mobility, and that's where Kendrick Green is going to make or break his career as an NFL player. Is his mobility from a center, what he could do, his versatility there,
Same
being able to
weaknesses
get
and
out.
strengths.
Basically, exactly. So learning behind Marquise Pouncey, how Marquise Pouncey did it, and how when he was young, what he did. You're not going to learn much from J.C. Hassenauer. I'm just being real, but yeah. So having Pouncey would have been nice for one more year. But life goes on.
Well, is there anything you kind of wanted, anything else that we're thinking about with this offense or really the team in general that we wanted to touch on?
No, I don't think so. I think we covered it all pretty good. I think the Steelers even tried using Derek Watt, and he got a shovel pass.
That was,
So-
I also, again, that whole thing plays into the poor decision by the coaching staff to throw out heavy personnel. This should not have been a Derek Watt game.
But they said, I swear Matt Canada just goes on Twitter and sees what people are yelling at him and is like, oh, I should do that. I forgot about that. Oh, Lord.
Moving forward, what do you try to do? Because, again, there's still hope that the offensive line can start to get better by maybe around midseason. But outside of that, there's not a lot of great things on the horizon here right now, stemming from bad play designs, bad play calling, bad quarterbacking, bad running game, horrible offensive line dropping the ball. Where do you go from here?
Like I said, there's only like a few more things you could try anymore. You basically tried it all. It's J.C. Hassenauer at center and Kevin Rader at tight end. That's basically what you got left. I can't picture the Steelers making a trade. Like, at this point, with how much capital they're down draft-wise, it's just not it's not a good idea to keep throwing stuff for this year, which this year just doesn't look like it. It's not going to be it. You're going to need a quarterback in next year, 2 years. I can't imagine they're going to get one off the street. So I think that the draft capital is more important in these next 2 years. If there's a guy you want, you need to be able to trade up for him. So I don't really view that as an option. You could possibly look at the free agents. I maybe you look at a Mitchell Schwartz. I don't know. That would be. There is a chance for that. I still think that Earl Wartford could be better than Trey Turner, even though he is kind of in the same boat. It's not guaranteed. Earl Wartford is kind of like washed, and that's where Trey Turner is. Trey Turner was really good for when he was early on in his career, then just fell off a cliff, and Earl Watford is kind of the same. Is really good, and I wouldn't say that. That's the thing, though. I wouldn't say Watford fell off a cliff. I think he's still serviceable. I think he's okay, and I think that's an improvement. So maybe look at that. Maybe there's other guards in the free agent pool that I just don't remember, but that's basically it. The Steelers' options for the offensive line are exhausted. Other than also Zach Banner coming back whenever he makes his return.
You have to just live with the growing pains of the young players on the left side, and that's okay. Except it's not really, but I mean, you've dug in this deep already with those guys. You just have to stick with it. As far as the play designs go, and the whole formations and whatnot, I do whatever I can to get Najee Harris and the running game in space. I try to spread things out because he's good in space. That's where he's at his best. I try to get him in space. I try more jet sweeps with Claypool and Juju, assuming that he's healthy. I know Ben's not comfortable with RPOs, but I try running RPOs.
Might as well put him into uncomfortable situations. Him being comfortable isn't very good.
There
right
is
now.
no comfortable in this offense. There just
That is
isn't.
true. No comfortable.
I was gonna say run max protect, but he's still getting pressured on max protect before it can even develop. It's everywhere you try to turn, there's some sort of something blocking you from trying it. Other than spreading things out and trying RPOs and just kind of building off of that, and that can like never be the only thing that you try to do, but hopefully just try to build things off of it. I don't know. I almost think you have to go back to a style of the like running it in the 1970s where you just almost have to run even though it might not be working. You just have to keep trying. I don't know, man. There's not a ton to do. And the thing is, I also don't think that switching quarterbacks makes a huge difference. Certainly not with Dwayne Haskins. Dwayne Haskins, you're going to have the same issues, maybe more turnovers because of the way he plays, and he just doesn't push the ball down the field either right now. Mason Rudolph, you might have a little more success down the field, but he's also so immobile. I think you run into the same issues with him.
Yeah, the Steelers don't really have much of a change available on the roster for quarterback. To me, Mason Rudolph plays exactly the same as Ben with less of a pressure feel. Like, he doesn't have that radar in his head that, oh, there's pressure. And with all the pressure coming, I guess it won't really matter because, oh, yeah, pressure's coming every play. But I view that as a downgrade. I view Haskins as lateral at best.
I view him as a major downgrade. I'm sorry.
I don't. I think he's better than Rudolph because with Rudolph you're getting the same thing with Ben, except again no radar.
Maybe you do an occasional wildcat. I don't know. I just think I hate to run Najee into the ground already, but I mean, you drafted him. You might as well use the kid. Plow him forward. Yeah. And as far as the receivers, I don't know what you have to do because they're not getting separation. And the one time they stack a guy on the outside, Ben misfires by just a couple yards. That one hurt so much. Ben's performance, I think if you look at two plays and switch them, his day gets viewed a lot differently. Number one is that pick, and number two is that deep shot to Washington. If those two plays flip, I think it's still a bad day, but a lot changes. But there's no glimmer right now.
If he nails that pass to Washington, that's a one-play touchdown. That would have been so nice, and the momentum that would have might have brought life into the team. It could have
backed people off. Then you could have started hitting things underneath.
Yeah.
And all these drops this year, not one from Deontay Johnson, by the way, yet.
Yeah. Again, still because he got injured, it's 22 straight targets without a drop. Or 22 straight catches, my bad. 22 straight catches without a drop. So, he's doing well.
Yep. Yeah, like we just said, there's not a ton to do, but you've got to, I don't know. When you're focusing on, like, what would you try to fix first? I mean, I guess you said the offensive line, but assuming they're not going to bring anyone in, what is kind of your emphasis? Are you saying we're going to run the ball? We're going to have to run the ball. You guys are going to have to block it up, and we're going to keep doing it until it works. And, otherwise you just, if it's third and long, you just sit back there and try to shoot for the sticks and only run 3 men on the route and just take your chances.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to really have much worse of an offense than this. So, I mean, you might as well just try something else, even if it's forcing the run to happen when it's not happening. I don't really know.
Has not felt quite this bad in a long time, hasn't it, Austin?
No. Even 2013 felt better a little bit.
Is there a chance that we're overreacting a bit? And, throughout the Ben Roethlisberger era, we've seen this team up against a wall, like in 2018 when they lost 3 straight, the last one to the Oakland Raiders. And then the Patriots came to town, and then they beat them. Is there any chance we're overreacting a little bit and it could change?
Yep. Any given Sunday, things could change. One day, against the Packers, the Steelers could all of a sudden put up 30 points. Do I see that as likely? No. But it's always a tale of... Not anymore. I was going to say it's a tale of two halves. It is a tale of two halves every game, but now with 17 games, there is no halfway point. But teams have 100% turned it around down the stretch. I think of the Buccaneers last year. Much different scenario. But they were 7-5. They really weren't that good. They were all right. Like, through 12 weeks... They were all right. They went on, they pulled it together, and they went on a playoff run because of the playoff experience that Tom Brady had. He was used to being in that scenario, and they pulled it through. all it takes is for your team to get hot. If the Steelers could get hot at the right time, it's enough to make the playoffs. Anything can happen. And there are periods where there's just going to be some bad stuff. There's just going to be a period of bad that you sometimes run through. The beginning of last year's season was great. I mean, 11-0, amazing. And then the Steelers cooled down at the exact wrong time. Opposite in 2013. 2013, the Steelers were 0-4. Steelers were looking awful. They had lost to the Jets. Then they finished the year by going 8-4 for the last 12 games. Barely just missed the playoffs because of San Diego and the Kansas City Chiefs game. So anything could happen. Anything could change. That's really it.
In the Ben Roethlisberger era, the Steelers have played, let's see, 275 games in the regular season. They have been eligible for the postseason, meaning they hadn't been eliminated from playoff contention, in 274 of those. They've played one game, the finale of the 2012 season, with at least the mathematical possibility that they could make the playoffs. And that seems like that's going to change this year.
Yeah, at least at the moment.
There's I'm sorry. I was just thinking about the whole math with that situation.
Yeah, that's fair.
Long-term outlook for this team, it can get better, but there doesn't look like a quick fix, I guess, is the thing we keep coming back to. And look, Ben's going to get hurt at some point with the way he's getting hit.
Yeah, I mean, he already technically is. So.
Yeah, he's already injured. But yeah, like you said, I will say there is one silver lining, and it's the defense. If everyone can come back and come back healthy, if you get TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, and maybe Stephon Tuitt comes back this week or sometime soon, and if those guys play really well and this defense starts taking the ball away like they had the last 3 seasons, maybe they can put the Steelers' offense in short field situations. Maybe somehow they have 3 turnovers next week, and the Steelers turn that into 17 points somehow. Again, not likely, but what if they do, and then they get their one normal offensive touchdown drive of the game? Then that's 24 points. Maybe they can just run out the clock from there and just do the whole Super Bowl 50 offense with Peyton Manning, where they just ran it and just muscled the clock down as long as they had it on offense.
Yeah,
that's the path.
Never forget Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, and then also,
2015 Peyton Manning.
2015 Peyton Manning, but that's also, I was looking for, Blake Bortles. Blake Bortles was pretty close to winning an AFC championship game.
One score away from the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm.
Literally. So anything can happen. Anything.
Alrighty. Well, shall we move on from that funeral for 1 and 2 team?
Yes, sir.
All right, you want to dip into... you want to clean up some stuff with the injury report here?
Yeah, sure. So, Juju Smith-Schuster has bruised ribs and missed some of the game, but he is not expected to miss time. He's expected to practice this week. Kendrick Green left the game after injuring his knee, but he's also not expected to miss time neither. Chukwuma Okorafor is in the concussion protocol. I already talked about Zach Banner, Stephon Tuitt, and Anthony McFarland. Watch for them to get put on their 21-day window. They could be designated to return this week, and all that means is that they could be activated anytime in the next 21 days from that point. Doesn't mean that they'll be activated, so don't get your hopes up too much. And then just outside of that, some Steeler news is that the Steelers decided that Derek Tuszka was a better performer than Jameer Jones after this past Sunday. And Tuszka has been elevated to the 53-man roster, and they have cut Jameer Jones, but Jones is expected to sign back to the practice squad. So that's that quickly.
Alrighty. Any thoughts on the whole Tuszka Jones thing? I'm happy for Tuszka, but I hate to see it for Jones too.
Yeah, I mean,
I do think Tuszka was better defensively.
Yeah, Tuska was solid, and he definitely has really good special teams abilities. So it's exciting, but Jones might get his chance later. Again.
All right. Shall we get into week 3 around the NFL?
Sure, why not?
All right. Where do we start here? Oh, the Bills and Washington. Yeah, talk about a blowout. The Bills, since they lost to the Steelers, are outscoring teams, like 90-21? Something crazy like that. They destroyed the Washington football team in this one. And honestly, I don't even feel like they played their best ball for part of this game.
No. It's kind of crazy that Washington football... We were both very high on the football team. And even when Ryan Fitzpatrick went down, we were still pretty high on them. Their defense is just sucking. They are ranking 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, 32nd in a lot of major stats. They are just not doing good at all. And that is completely unexpected. For a team that seemingly just got better by adding William Jackson, they are severely underperforming. It has been the offense that is overperforming that is even keeping Washington in it. And that's with, overperforming by Tyler Heineke is doing better than it is expected. Antonio Gibson, I'd say, is pretty disappointing so far, but for what was expected to happen with him. But, I have no idea what's going on with their defense. I really thought that they would be better.
They also have one of the lowest missed tackle rates in the NFL, which means it could be even worse than what it is right now, which is insane to me.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Buffalo looks like they're back on track. Washington now in trouble. Let's head to Cleveland to see the Browns. If there was one offense that performed worse than Pittsburgh's last week, it was the Chicago Bears. Jalen Hurts in his first start got absolutely nothing going. I think they had a total net passing yards of something insane. They finished with one net passing yard. Yeah. Fields got crushed with a horrible offensive line, a good Browns defensive line, and the fact that he holds on to the ball a lot. This is stuff you would see from rookie quarterbacks in the 1960s and 70s when they didn't know what they were doing. This was just insane how bad it was.
Yeah, Myles Garrett had 4.5 sacks.
A Browns record.
The Joker had a half sack. Ronnie Harrison, the safety, had a sack. Davian Clowney had 2 himself. And then Takaris McKinley also, and Malik Jackson got in on half sacks. Just absolutely nasty. I feel bad for that team. We have the same problems, so...
Except they have their quarterback of the future, so I don't feel bad. F them.
Yeah. That's tough. David Montgomery and Allen Robinson are the only thing that keep that offense afloat, and there's no chance for either of them. But still, Montgomery does decently. He's like Najee right now. He only ran 10 times for 34 yards, but those are hard-fought yards.
Yeah, those were hitting the backfield, falling forward every time.
I would not be shocked if they're second in, because we talked about the 70% hitting the backfield percentage for Najee. I would not be shocked if he's second.
Browns did a good job running the ball. A workmanlike performance for them. They are a good football team. Really not looking forward to seeing them later this year twice. But then again, I'm not looking forward to seeing anybody, maybe even Detroit at this point. Let's move on. Speaking of Detroit, they nearly upset Baltimore this week. But as sad as this is to say, it's true. Justin Tucker, for the second time, hit a 60-plus yard field goal to beat the Lions as time expired in Detroit. If that is not super specific, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that's tough. They were that NFL record-setting field goal away from losing. And to be honest, fair. For them to come back from the amount of defensive linemen and outside linebackers they didn't have, I give them credit for that. Because playing any NFL team is just really hard. It just is. It doesn't matter what NFL team is. They nerfed themselves down to where they were worse than practice squad level. So, good for the Ravens for pulling it out. I give credit to them for that, but I was so mad that they hit that. I I remember texting John like, "Oh yeah, at least the Ravens lost." He's like, "They won." And I'm like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, they're lining up for a 66-yard field goal. No way." I was like, "That's so far." And of course, Justin Tucker hit it. I think a week after I talked
Hit
about
the
how
crossbar too.
Yeah, just barely. A week after I talked about how Justin Tucker was showing some signs of regressing.
Well, he did miss a field goal in this one, so I mean, his accuracy is starting to go down. Problem is, if he hits it dead on, he can hit it from outer space.
Yeah. Yep.
I also love the dubbing of the opera that CBS Sports tweeted when he was kicking that field goal. What a talented individual. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, he sings opera, doesn't he?
Yeah. Quite talented he is. That's just not fair. He should only be allowed to be great at one thing.
You get kicking or opera, pick one.
Where else? The Tennessee Titans pushed the Colts down to 0-3. The Colts, who were thought to be the main challengers for the Titans this year, just could not get anything going offensively. Derrick Henry had a decent but not great performance, and really the Titans just did what they had to do in this one. A 9-point win at home. And they are the clear-cut favorite in the AFC South, and there's no distinct challenger anywhere close to them.
Yep, that entire division is just poo-poo garbage, kind of like we both predicted. The
Texans with Tyrod Taylor might have actually provided a fight.
Yeah, honestly, the Texans are probably better than the Colts right now. I'll say it. I think they are. I think that in their first meeting, whenever that happens, which I hope it's week 4, I don't know if it is. A lot of division games coming on week 4. So it is a possibility. I didn't really look at the NFL schedule for week 4. Houston, Buffalo. But I think that the Texans with Tyrod Taylor could beat the Colts. They're just not a good team. Shout out to all those extensions they're giving their players, though.
And now the fans are letting them hear it, finally.
Yeah. Hey, no, it's okay, though. They're going to get rid of some of their money that's put into running backs, and they're going to trade Marlon Mack.
Did you know that the difference between the salary cap and the floor, if a team spends to the floor but not the cap, that extra money to the cap gets pocketed by the owners?
I thought it rolled over.
Nope.
Huh. For some reason, yeah. Of course. Yeah, they're really cheap. I'm not surprised.
Yeah. There should be something in the CBA where that gets redistributed out to like the NFLPA for like every player to get. So it incentivizes spending to the cap.
Yeah. So. Absolutely.
Yeah, just thought you'd want to know that. But anyhow, let's move on to maybe one of the games of the week, the Chargers and the Chiefs. And I know it wasn't perfect, but I had to get my 2 cents in because I was right about this. I felt that the Chiefs were really kind of staggered a bit after their loss to the Ravens, and I thought the Chargers were in prime position to take them out, and the Chargers do come away with the win. The Chiefs, who made a lot of mistakes in this game, but the Chargers are out in front 2-1 in this division over the Chiefs, who are now 1-2 and in last place.
Yeah. Kind of crazy, though. For the Chargers to win this game, they had to make not a singular mistake. They literally had no turnovers, and it took, the Chiefs had 3, I believe, 2 interceptions, 1 fumble, if I remember. No, 2 fumbles. 4 fumbles compared to the Chargers 0, and the Chargers only won by 6 points. That's still scary to me. The Chiefs' defense screws them in general, but it took 4 turnovers to cripple them enough that they lost. I thought the Chargers played an absolute great game. I mean, again, perfectly. No turnovers. They did what they needed to do. But if they literally have 1 turnover, it's probably swinging in the Chargers, in the Chiefs' favor. That's all it's going to take. Chiefs are never out of any game. No matter what happens, no matter how far they're down, they're not going to be out of any game. But on the flip side, every team is going to be with them, probably because their defense sucks so bad.
They did get a bit of reinforcements with the addition of Josh Gordon, but I still think that they are a Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill injury away from this offense being pedestrian.
Yeah, we'll see if Josh Gordon is able to contribute much before he gets suspended for the 7th time.
He's only 30, so realistically, he should still be decent.
Yeah, he should still have some more in the tank. Probably better than McCole Hardman.
How about Mike Williams for the Chargers? He's never had a big game in his life. He catches touchdowns, but it's illegal for him to have more than 100 receiving yards, and he had 2 touchdowns and 122 in this one.
It feels like Anthony Lynn was holding this man back.
It really does, doesn't it?
I don't know if that's true. I don't know if Mike Williams knows, hey, this is a contract year. I'm going to kick it up to 100. It could be a combination of both, but it feels like Anthony Lynn was holding this man back because he was restricting the routes he was running.
I didn't see a single second of the Saints-Patriots game, but it looks like it played out a lot closer to their Week 1 win over Green Bay than their Week 2 loss to the Panthers, as Mac Jones is picked off 3 times.
For a minute, it looked like a solid game, but then it wasn't. It looked like it was going to be decent and for maybe a minute, and then no. The Patriots weren't able to establish a run game whatsoever. They really struggled with that. Mac Jones, I think, threw over 50 times.
He threw 50 exactly, I believe.
Okay, yeah. He threw 50, and including 3 picks. Not very good for a so-called very good quarterback class. It's funny how that works out. Really bad classes are the Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson class. The really good class so far is not looking really good at all. But
yeah, we heard all preseason about how much better they were all looking than the good 2018 class, and most of them have had issues so far.
Yeah,
big issues.
None of them look like they're ready this year, at least so far. A long season ahead, but none of these guys look like they're breakout year 1 guys. I don't know, Kyler Murray flashed. He wasn't particularly great in his first year, but Kyler Murray flashed at least a little. None of these guys are flashing right now. They all look bad. Zach Wilson especially, but they all don't. Trevor Lawrence, I'm pretty sure, leads the league in uncatchable throw percentage, actually. So both the 1 and 2 might be the worst of the top guys. Fields at least could say, bro, I don't get any time. I guess that's Wilson's excuse too. Wilson doesn't get any time to throw either. But Mac Jones probably has the least excuse, I guess. I don't know. All these guys are in bad positions.
He also, you could also argue he shouldn't have been drafted in the first round either, though.
Which one, Mac?
Mac Jones, yeah. You could say everyone thought he was the 5th best quarterback. Yeah. So, I mean,
so far Trey Lance looks the best. And he's played
limited time.
3 snaps.
Yeah.
He's got to run touchdowns in. That's Trey Lance's job. Trey Lance's job is to play Lamar Jackson for the 49ers.
The rookie Lamar Jackson. And if he gets bumped up like Justin Fields just did, it might look like Justin Fields. Probably not, because that offense is better, but
Yeah, he's in the best position to succeed as well. If they bench Garoppolo for him, I would feel like he has the best position to succeed with what he has been given.
Let's move on to the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Giants. And you said it perfectly. The Falcons screwed me again as I picked against them. The Giants are often running to that 0-17 season that you were predicting for them. They played probably their best game of the year, outside of maybe their disappointing loss last week. But the Falcons got just enough done from their aging quarterback that doesn't target the deep middle of the field in Matt Ryan. But, 17-14 victory between 2 bad NFC teams. Not a lot to say here.
Yeah, similarly, the Atlanta Falcons also have a bad offensive line. I would say not quite as bad as the Steelers, but they also don't have good running backs. Mike Davis doesn't look good. Cordarrelle Patterson was good for 1 week where he ripped off 1 big run, and then it's just been kind of widely ineffective on the ground since. And so they are a team very similarly built on offense to the Steelers. But the Giants were just not able to pull it away, and the Falcons were just able to win.
All right, let's move to maybe the biggest surprise, at least early on, was the Jaguars and Cardinals. The Jaguars led for a good portion of this game and had that crazy kick six, which seemed like a horrible coaching decision. And the Cardinals were able to overcome some shaky moments on offense to come away with somehow a double-digit point victory after looking like they were in deep trouble for a while.
Yeah, it's incredible that they were able to cover on the back side of this game. Did a really good job on that front to not panic and score 17 points in the third quarter. But yeah, I think they thought they had Justin Tucker for kicking.
Hey, shout out to AJ Green for having a big bounce back game and James Conner for having a good season so far. 2 touchdowns for him.
Yeah, it was a good game for him.
All right, let's move into the 4 o'clock games. We got the Jets and the Broncos. Not a whole lot to say. The Jets are a bad team, and the Broncos maybe not great, but they're winning the games they should so far and are doing a good job. They know their identity.
They're having the Steelers start of last year. Steelers were 3-0 last year against 0-9 teams, and here are the Broncos, who are 3-0 against 0-9 teams combined. So we're going to find out more about Denver next week, because or I guess this week now, because they play Baltimore, which Baltimore is still not even that great, in my opinion, but we'll know more, a little bit more about them. I believe in the Broncos. I truly think that last year, a combination of leading the league in turnover... Did I lose connection?
Nope, you're still here.
Oh, perfect. Cool. Okay, I thought I lost connection. Things looked like they turned off, but sorry about that. The combination of leading the league in turnovers with Drew Lock leading the league in interceptions without playing a full season, not having Von Miller and not having Cameron Sutton, who I think is an underrated wide receiver, I think that's the difference between the Broncos being a solid team and a very bad team. Now you have Teddy Bridgewater, who's very efficient. He's not going to be an amazing quarterback, but he's not going to turn over the ball. He's going to do what he needs to do. He's going to be efficient, and he's going to do it well. And he did that. It's pretty pedestrian. 19 for 25 from 235 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Big focus on the no interceptions, though. That is what's big for them. Then on the other side of the ball, you have Von Miller back. He do be existing. He got a sack in this game. And Cortland Sutton is the second leading receiver on the team. He was tied for the most receptions too. So overall, I just think this team is really solid this year. I think they made a lot of improvements from last year. A lot stemming from not moving on from Luck, but making Bridgewater the starter. So I think they're solid.
Elsewhere, the Miami Dolphins and Las Vegas Raiders played an interesting game into overtime that the Raiders were able to win and are also 3-0 this year, but their wins have come against teams with wins this year.
Yeah, I'm not a big Raiders believer yet, and this game just didn't really help that. But also, Jacoby Brissett lit. I love Jacoby Brissett.
4.4 yards per attempt.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about.
He was awesome running with the ball, though. And, I mean, that line is terrible.
Oh, yeah, it is. The Dolphins line, I think, is one that's graded lower than the Steelers' offensive line. So that should tell you about as much as you need to know. But he's mobile. So it kept them in the game. It kept them in it enough. I thought this game was much closer than I thought it would be. Vegas strikes again with a perfect line of 3.5.
It's because they play in Vegas. They know them perfectly. Let's go to the other game of the week, the Rams and Buccaneers. Man, does anyone love life right now more than Matthew Stafford? That guy's killing it. A great day again. The Rams struggle to run the ball, but they're doing so well through the air, it doesn't matter. The defending champs fall for the first time this year in a game where they couldn't get anything going on the ground and were playing catch-up most of the day.
Deshaun Jackson, I feel like, is just never going to stop. Like, we're going to be in year 2025, and it's going to be Deshaun Jackson gets one catch for 75 yards and a touchdown. Like, it's just, he never stops. Like, he's just going to be fast forever.
Would have been a nice player to have.
Yeah, he would have been a nice player. That is really what the Steelers are missing. They're missing a burner. But regardless of that, he got a touchdown in this game of 75 yards. Cooper Kupp looks amazing. Excellent bounce-back season for him after having a somewhat slower season last year. Still really good. I think Higbee's enjoying a solid season this year, and yeah, Matt Stafford is just dishing it. He's doing really well. I mean, it's just there's nothing else to say. I mean, he's doing it without a run game. I'm not going to say he's got no talent on offense. He's got tons of talent in Deshaun Jackson, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, Tyler Higbee, Robert Woods. He's got guys. He's got dudes, but yeah, he's doing basically what a lot of people expected him to be doing.
He's fulfilling the prophecy. Elsewhere, what in the F happened with the Vikings and Seahawks game? This is actually the first time seeing this. I didn't even know what happened.
Oh no, the Seahawks were just pathetic.
What in
Seahawks
the world?
were
I literally didn't see like any of the later games. What the F? What happened here?
Alexander Madison and Kirk Cousins did whatever they wanted to them, and Tyler Conklin. I guess Justin Jefferson was their leading receiver, but Jesus, did Alexander Madison ruin their day? Like, everyone said, don't fall for Alexander Madison in fantasy. He never produces, and then man put up like 180 scrimmage yards and no touchdown. I thought he had a touchdown in the receiving game, but yeah, 180 scrimmage yards to Alexander Madison, 112 on the yard, 112 on the ground. And 59 through the air. Kirk Cousins was completely accurate, 30 for 38, 323 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, only took 1 sack. Yeah, they did whatever they wanted in the game offensively. And the Seahawks offense just did not look that good. They were struggling. Plus Lockett got hurt at some point, so there's that as well.
All right,
he's okay, though.
Let's move to the primetime games. The Packers beat the San Francisco 49ers 30-28, another vintage Aaron Rodgers performance, leading the game-winning drive with just a little over a minute left to go. And the Packers win a good Sunday night game 30-28. It was a good game.
This is not completely off topic, but man, do the 49ers really need to look into their strength and conditioning coaches every year. They are a top team in injuries, and that can't be a coincidence. That really can't be a coincidence that every year they have a ridiculous amount of injuries. I mean, their entire running back room got destroyed. It's just so bad. Do you realize they carried the ball 5 times with Juszczyk? I think that's lit.
Yeah, I loved it. I'm all for it.
I think it's great, but like that's where they're at with their injuries. I mean, Trey Sermon was the lead back technically. This should be the team that gets Marlon Mack. If the Colts are trading him, I think that the 49ers should just say, yeah, we'll give you a 7th. We'll give you a 6th for Marlon Mack and a 7th. Because I think that they would be the best team for it, but that's besides the point. Man, someone need to look into that strength and conditioning coach. Jimmy Garoppolo had one of the worst fumbles I had ever seen. He literally threw the ball at the ground backwards, so even if it was a throw, it was a throw behind him, which implies it would be a loss, so it'd be a fumble anyway, even if he was throwing it. So, not very good there, but they still almost pulled it out. Packers had to drive down the field to win it themselves on a 51-yard field goal.
And then the final game of the week, the Eagles and Cowboys. The Cowboys were in control most of this game, an efficient game from the offense, and the Eagles just couldn't keep up. I didn't see much of this one.
Is the Dallas defense real? I've got questions that need answering. I really think Dallas defense is real, and they're led by the combination of Diggs and Parsons. Both those guys are playing out of their mind. Parsons, at this point, I think you could put him at safety and he's going to ball out.
Micah Parsons is what Devin Bush should be, or should have been.
Yeah, literally. He is playing ridiculous. As a defensive end, he is still destroying. That makes 0 sense. He hasn't played defensive end since high school. Gross. Love it. They played this game without Keanu Neal, too, who has been their best inside linebacker, at least I believe. But yeah, Diggs is a top-tier cornerback. I feel like at this point, if people aren't saying it, they should be. He has 3 picks through 3 games, Had a pick six in this one. Looks absolutely ridiculously good. He's got to enter the conversation for one of the top cornerbacks in the league. At least it should be soon for people because he's just playing out of his mind the first 3 games. I really didn't believe in these defensive backs at all. I thought their inside linebackers were good. I thought their defensive line was solid with DeMarcus Lawrence, and they don't even have DeMarcus Lawrence anymore. He's a broken foot. I think the Cowboys defense is real, and I like what they're doing.
All right. That wraps up the rest of this week around the NFL. Let's get to Thursday Night Football, which is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati is a 7.5-point favorite. I like the Bengals in this one. I think the Jaguars are the worst team in the league.
Yeah. I also think the Jaguars are the worst team in the league. Therefore, I'm going to pick Jaguars plus 7.5.
Worse than the Giants?
Yeah.
Wow. How about that?
Can they both go winless? Do they play each other?
Well, no, because Wait a minute. Have they played interconference yet? I don't know. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Yeah, because if they don't play, they could both go winless.
Well, I will check with that right now. As far as next week goes, the Steelers are traveling to Lambeau Field, and the Steelers will play them. So, yeah. Any closing thoughts before we wrap this one up?
No, I think I'm good.
All right, then. We'll be back later in the week to talk about previewing that game. Nope, the Giants play the AFC West this year.
Both are going winless now.
All right. Well, in the meantime, thank you as always for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast. As you know, you can email us at strongerthansteelpodcast@gmail.com with any feedback or questions you have for the show. And check out our new podcast on anchor.fm/strongerthansteel to check out our new home for our podcast. We appreciate your listenership. And as the circle of sadness continues to spin, remember all the good times that we've had. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Stronger Than Steel podcast with Austin and John.
Goodbye.
You have been listening to Stronger Than Steel podcast. Thank you for joining us today, and don't forget to check out our website listed in the description below.